Today I thought we would take a look at the Retron HD clone console. Now normally I don't have anything to do with clone consoles. I bought one years ago, the piece of crap just broke and took a game with it, so I don't really trust them. But this one intrigued me. And Retron seem to be throwing out a lot of clone consoles which people are praising, so I thought it'd be worth giving one a go. And this thing cost me only 20 quid. Now the big question is, why would anyone buy a clone console? Well, if you want to get into collecting retro games, sometimes you can't afford the original hardware. Or you get the original hardware and it turns out it's broken, it's busted, there's things wrong with it. At least a clone console is new, made from new technology. So if you get the right one, then your quid's in. But if you get the wrong one, you're screwed. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to find out if this thing is worth the money. Now before we take a look at the console itself, let's have a look at the controller. As you can see, it doesn't look quite the same as the original, which I have here. There are subtle differences. The slopes on the corners, the general layout of the patterns. But how does it feel? Well, I've already tested this and I can tell you it works fine. There's nothing wrong with its function. But I'm not a big fan of the D-pad. But all other buttons do seem okay. It's just the D-pad that annoys me. Other than that, the controller is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Now for the console itself. Well, first of all, I'll tell you, you can use original controllers, which is a big plus. Of course, you can use the one that came with it, but if you don't want to, you can use an original controller. Aesthetically, it looks nice. There is another version of this that's in black, in case you're interested. We got the typical striped rigidness from the original NES. This red, I can only assume they decided with red because of the Famicom. I guess. That's what I reckon. The H that you see here for Hyperkin lights up when the console is turned on. The buttons, power and reset, are done in the style of the original NES. That's nice. It's cool that they've done things like this and that. They really didn't need to, but they wanted to. So that's pretty cool. But my favourite thing about the console, it's a bit sad really, but on the back we have HD output and composite. Now why does that matter, I hear you ask? Well, if you have a modern telly and you want it to look nice and crisp and work on your modern telly, of course, HDMI. But there is actually an existing problem. With HDMI, you do get a bit of lag. If you play old school 8-bit NES games on a modern telly, you do get a bit of lag and it will piss you off. And that's where the composite comes in. If you manage to get hold of a CRT TV, obviously the picture quality is going to be different, but there is no lag. This has tackled everything. In case you don't have an old CRT, you can use the HDMI. If you do, you can use CRT and get that awesome lag-free quality. It's brilliant! And of course you have a switch here, which is a right little treat. You can go 16:9 or 4:3. Obviously I'm just going to leave it on the 4:3, I'm not going to fuck with that. And believe it or not, there is one more switch on this console, which is hidden away. Now if you decide you want to import for NES, say you want to play Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy didn't come out in the UK, so if you want to play it, best thing to do is to get hold of a cartridge from America. Now you could play that on a normal NES if you've broken round the lockout chip and all that other bollocks that there's tons of YouTube videos on, so we won't bother with that. But if you do, then you get the chances of glitching, which you don't want. And if you try to play Final Fantasy on a normal UK NES, it's just not going to work. But this thing has tackled that. Underneath is a switch, PAL NTSC. Basically, European games, American games. Now, to my knowledge, there's no real way for playing Famicom games unless you have an adapter, maybe, but this thing seems to have tackled so many different problems that a retro gamer would have. So the console looks aesthetically pleasing. It seems to have covered all your needs for controllers. It seems to have covered all your needs for visuals and plugging into tellies and all that bullshit. So enough of that. Now it's time to actually take a look at what it makes the games look like. Is it any good or is it shit? Let's find out. Now before we start looking at games properly, I want to let you know that throughout this video I will be comparing the quality of the Retron to the quality of the NES Classic Edition. And that's because, in my opinion, the NES Classic is the top quality on visuals and sounds for NES games. So we'll be checking out a lot of games that we can compare between the two. Now the first game I've decided to try out is Castlevania. As you can see throughout this video, we're going to have the Retron games on the left and the NES Classic ones on the right. Straight away we can see there's some colour differences, which is a little bit worrying. The green of the trees seems to be just a bit too bright, and the main character himself seems to be a little off colour. When we're actually in the castle, we can see that it's very, very dark grey as opposed to what it's actually supposed to look like. So yeah, for some reason, colours are a little bit off. But what about the sound? Well, first off, we'll listen to the NES Classic. Everything sounds fine. Then we listen to the Retron. Yeah, something's it's a little off, isn't it? The sound effects for items doesn't sound too bad, but the music seems to be heavy on the bass. Is that right? I don't know, it's just a little off. So there you have it. With Castlevania we can see some slight colour differences and the sound is a little strange. Now we'll try out another game. And this one's much more important because we're going to test what it's like at playing an American game. We are going to play Final Fantasy. Now straight away you can see that the Retron is a bit darker. Doesn't look particularly bad here though, seems fine really. Now here's a little sound sample of the NES Classic. And here is a little sound sample of the Retron. Seems to be the same issues as before with Castlevania really, doesn't it? But it plays the game fine. I have to stress that there is nothing wrong with gameplay. So I would still recommend it at least for importing American games. Next up we are going to try something that is very colourful. Kirby. The colours in the levels seem fine. They're a bit more watered out on the NES Classic, but that's how they're supposed to be. The Retron seems to have made everything, I don't know, not darker, but fuller in colour, which is quite surprising. It's not bad, it's different, but it's not bad. Now for the sound test. First the NES Classic. And now the Retron. Yeah, that sounds a little bit off, doesn't it? But again, gameplay's fine, looks okay, just different. The sound is the bad one on this game, though. Next up is Mega Man 2. And straight away there's a huge difference here. Just look at Mega Man's skin colour. He looks like he's gonna be sick. And if you look at the level select screen, something really bugs me. It seems to have less detail. If we just close up on Bubble Man's face, you should be able to see what I mean. Things look a little bit off. Now in terms of graphics and colouring, once again the Retron looks slightly darker here, but the only real bad thing is Mega Man's skin colour. That doesn't look right, does it? Other than that, it seems fine. Everything seems okay. Now for the sound test. And now the Retron. Once again, bit different. Next game we're going for an absolute classic, Super Mario Bros. And straight away at the title screen we can see huge colour differences. The browns seem to look more beige in colour. It's just not quite right. And Mario, well, his skin colour has changed. He doesn't look sick, but he looks like he's got one hell of a tan. Gameplay seems absolutely fine. Can't complain on that. But the sound in this one bugs me the most. Alright, first of all, NES Classic. And now the Retron. The music sounds wrong, but the sound effects sound crap. The jumping sound effect is very wrong. When you get a power up, very wrong. So far this game annoys me the most. Plays fine, looks a little different, not exactly bad, not right, but not bad, but the sound is a no. And now we try Super Mario Bros. 3, and again at the title screen we can see that the colours are a bit off. And once more, Mario's skin colour has changed again. Only this time he looks pale as hell, he looks like a goth. The funny thing is, quite like Kirby, in this game the colours seem to be fuller and better aside from Mario's skin colour. The sky is more blue, the hills are more green. I actually prefer it to the NES Classic in them terms. But what about the sound? Just like with the last Mario Brothers game, the music is a little off, but the jumping is wrong. They've got it wrong. The power-ups, slightly wrong. The jumping, very wrong. I find that really annoying. Anyway, we've looked at a bunch of comparisons. Now I'm going to test something very different. I have in my possession a copy of Mr. Gimmick on NES. It's not just any copy, this is a custom cart. So let's see if this clone console will play a custom/fake cartridge. Well, yes it does, it plays the game fine. If you just look here at this snapshot of Mr. Gimmick, of what it's supposed to look like, you can see it is a little different, but the main thing is it actually plays the damn cartridge. So that is a big plus for the console. So all in all, the main question, is this clone console worth getting? I would say yes, because at the end of the day, it does play everything. It does give you different options on how to play things with various televisions and all that shit. And it's cheap. This thing cost me 20 quid. If you could get it for 20 quid or less than 30, I would highly recommend it. But if you're interested in just getting into NES collecting and playing these things for either the first time or the first time in years, this is a great way to do it. I do recommend this console and I think it's worth the money. But what do you think? We've established that the sound is a bit wrong in places and the colour is always different. Only in a few cases is it ever actually bad though. I hope you enjoyed this little tech review today. If you did like the video, please click like or leave a comment, it's all good. And if you want to help out the channel, please click subscribe. It really does help. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.